Racism is a structure that allows one set of individuals to have predominance over the other, or in fact, people benefit from it. Hi, everyone. Hope all is well. Thanks for tuning in and, of course, watching from time to time. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. I take you on a learning journey, and sometimes the journey also takes me on learning before I present to you, because I think that's important to have an informed position on what I talk about. In all of that, too, I make a connection to the studies I've done over the years. And of course, this one takes me back to England and back to our current situation. Now, I love to do research, and several years ago in England, I explored the concept of racism in dominant literature in the United Kingdom. Yes, I did a study on that, and it was revealing because I realized that the way things are positioned in text, of course, and so forth, pay a sort of dominant dividend to those who are in charge because it gives them a way of having their privilege being dominant. Yes, and of course being displayed in text, of course, and all of that. Now, I say this to say that over the period of time, I realized that when we look at artificial intelligence and so forth, we are talking about content generation. And now I could practically substitute certain words in that same paper I wrote several years ago and put it as it relates to AI and pictures, and it would reveal the same dominant discourse I had back then. The reality is, I'm having some issues when I'm using generative AI to tell a story. Sometimes the story that I am trying to tell is predominantly given a perspective that I did not intend to by the generative AI. And what do I mean by this? I put in that I need a picture of a family. Of course, it gives me a family that is, of course, white. And that bothers me. So in order to get what I really want, I have to ensure that I put a black family or individuals who are black in that. I have to put that in that prompt, or else it comes back with a dominant structure. So the reality is that sometimes it takes you a longer time to develop something you want to do. And because you're having to use the prompt consistently to change things, I want to say to you that it uses your token. So the bottom line, you're going to be spending more. Yes, more, because every time you use generative AI, you have to pay or someone is paying. And that's why we have certain systems now saying that they're running out of money and they have to be bailed out. OpenAI is one of those. Now, having said this, let me get back to something else that I want to talk about. Here's a video I produced. I used generative AI to produce it, and I had to run it several times to get something that was sort of what I wanted. I want to play it, and please watch it because there are certain elements that it brings across that are not what I intended to have, but based on what the system offers and those assets that they have together, it creates this sort of system that I'm not 100% liking at this point in time. The reality is, as a content creator, using generative AI, I have to spend more time because it's not fitting the context, the historical concept that I have, and what my intentions were, because it's predominantly being influenced. So watch 1 minute of this clip, and then I'll go back into a discussion. In the islands, we're learning AI showing us the way. Math's become a game now, brighten up the day. Globally we're rising, tech in every hand. No more fear of numbers, united we will stand. Time to embrace AI, teaching maths with joy. Around the world we grow, every girl and boy. No more sleepless nights, equations flying high. AI guide our sight,
sky. Teachers now empowered, schools within their reach, classrooms full of wonder, every lesson teach. Time to embrace it.
Okay, one of the first things you might have noticed is the landscape. And of course, it gave you a landscape. Of course, it gave you a landscape that might look like a Caribbean territory because that's what the prompt stated. However, the houses are nowhere connected to Caribbean designs, as you know, right? And it looks at the village, and of course, the village was not the typical village you'd find in the Caribbean. And if you look further down and saw video further down, you'll realize there was even a spaceship. I don't know how that got into the offset. I just did not want to do that prompt over and over again and use up all my tokens for that one activity. It's expensive. So back to the point, how do we know that these sort of systems are putting out information that cements racism? Now back to the point of what racism is. Racism is a structure that allows one set of individuals to have predominance over the other. Or in fact, people benefit from it. Yes, because of that, and you can see that in text, video, and so forth. How is it shown up in video? Yes, by how the shots are taken. Sometimes you want to belittle people, you take a shot from overhead. Sometimes the artifacts that are used in the video are not the artifacts that are contextualized to that region. So therefore, you're superimposing dominant thoughts and ideology on a set of people. Number three, it all depends on the dialogue also used in that conversation. And I could go on and also include that there are issues when you look at symbols within those videos, you'll see that the symbols are not connected to, of course, the population. There's no diversity as it relates to the images of people, and sometimes the images that are created are not worthy because they dehumanize the individuals who they are representing. So we do have a lot to think about. I don't want to give a whole list. I will not give a comprehensive listing here, but in the video description, you'll find some. In summary, what I'm saying is when we think of generative AI, we're asking ourselves, when we put in a prompt, does that prompt represent the people you're trying to represent? And that's a dangerous thing if you're not representing them correctly. You're practically reproducing that level of discrimination, racism that is possible. Not many people think the way I do, but I must say that I have studied language and literacy from the highest point, and I do understand the power of language. Language models are based on the use of language, and that's fundamental. And hence, I have a full understanding how language can be used to shape our society, or culture, or history, and the way we perceive others. Having said that, language is going to play a pivotal role in how we continue our AI journey. I'm saying this to everyone listening. When you produce something and you're finished, please go and check if that image is a representation of the people you're trying to represent. Don't tell me you're doing something about Jamaica and the Caribbean and you have all the historical connections to ensure that that picture is accepted by the population. There are some subtle things that can happen in an image. I have taken an image before, and when I examine that image and I realize, wow, I couldn't put that image out because there was some symbol that would not have been acceptable to a certain population. We have to be very careful. So some people will brush it off and say, what Rohan is saying is not worthy. I'm telling you, it's worthy of consideration. I'm always asking people, have you considered the ethical issues associated with that picture before you use it? Yes. If you follow my work, I went in and did another video a couple months ago where I talked about the invention of the camera by, of course, Kodak, and its intention. It was never intended or tested upon individuals who were, of course, black or brown. I'm going to post a link to the video in my description section because that's interesting to note that there are issues that we have to consider. And these same issues now are embedded in AI algorithms that's pushing out images. So my warning, before you push that image out or that video out, think about the representation. Think about whose story you're telling. And before you do that, ensure that you have some people view that work. Because if you don't, that could be, of course, the reproduction of racism that we're trying to stop. Well, if you're truly about stopping it. And that's all for now.